Imagine being able to close your eyes and step into a realm where heroes still walk among us, and monsters lurk in the shadows. This place may be more real than you think, accessible through the power of your own mind. The psychiatrist Carl Jung did not see myths as simple stories that bear no meaning. He viewed them as symbolic representations of archetypes, universal patterns of behavior, and imagery deeply rooted in the collective unconscious. A secret realm all humans can access with their mind. You clicked on this episode because you are drawn to a collection of myths that were developed thousands of years ago. What we call Greek mythology refers to a vast tradition, once passed down orally, later preserved in literature, spanning from the Mycenaean to the Hellenistic period. These are tales that have been retold again and again for millennia, whether in their original form or reimagined, precisely because their messages are relevant to this day. I'm your hostess Maria Elena, just a curious girl in the search of meaning, and today we follow the footsteps of ancient Greek heroes and their journey to find their purpose. Before we get started, I want to pass on the microphone to you. I'd like to ask you which is your favorite Greek legend and most liked hero or heroine. Pause this video for a bit and take a moment to leave a comment down below. Now, let's dive into the hero's journey. In Xenophon's Memorabilia, Socrates reminds us of the story of the ancient Greek hero Heracles, who while contemplating his future found himself at a crossroad. There he was approached by two women, Kakia and Arete. In Greek, Kakia translates to vice or wickedness, and Arete means virtue. Kakia promises Heracles an easy life full of pleasure and joy. However, no real success or sense of achievement were associated with this path. Arete, on the other hand, promises him a path full of hardships and obstacles he would have to overcome. Nothing would come easy to him, but if he chose this path, he would be rewarded with everlasting glory at the very end. Heracles made the wise decision to choose the path of Arete, virtue, and gained the satisfaction that no short-lived pleasure would offer him. In this journey, he slayed monsters, solved enigmas, and returned a hero, gaining what is described in Greek as apotheosis. He gained divine status. The myth of Heracles is perhaps the best example of what the American writer Joseph Campbell described as the hero's journey. You may have also heard it as the monomyth. It is a narrative structure that revolves around the cyclical journey of the main hero. This hero ventures from the ordinary world, faces trials, achieves a victory, and returns transformed. In his book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, Campbell uses this precise description.
A hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man.
I should point out that although the hero's journey is a very popular concept, some folklorists have criticized it in the past. One of them was actually Alan Dundes, the folklorist quoted in the previous episode. The critics claim that the hero's journey can be too generalizing and Eurocentric, or even gender-biased. However, when it comes to Greek mythology, this framework is extremely fitting. Campbell's work was significantly influenced by ancient Greek myths. He viewed these stories as a key source of understanding universal human experiences and the recurring patterns found in storytelling across cultures. Now, although modern media often use different narrative structures, the monomyth, the hero's journey, is still widely utilized. Books and films such as The Lion King, Spirited Away, Harry Potter, and The Lord of the Rings all can be considered narratives that follow the monomyth framework. A hero goes on a quest, follows an initiation procedure, and returns as a transformed person. Campbell separates the monomyth into 3 acts: the departure, the initiation, the return. Within each act, there are different stages that can be up to 17 in total, but not all stories contain all of them. I think it's time to explore some Greek mythical stories within the context of each individual act, from the departure to the return, to better understand how we all can be heroes and heroines after all. Before we move on to the first act, the departure, I would like to make a brief pause to introduce our secret YouTube book club that is starting this fall for all Helinika Society members. Starting in September, we will explore masterpieces of some of the most influential modern Greek authors, but also works from the international literature scene, books that are set in Greece and present the local culture from a unique perspective. You can find more information in the pinned comment and in the description. Now let's get back to our topic. Imagine finding yourself in ancient Ithaca while King Odysseus rules over the island. Listen to the cicadas playing their music as you ascend the anomalous path towards his stone-built palace. As you pass by a nearby field, you look to your left only to see the most bizarre scene of all: a donkey and an ox plowing the field with salt. Next to them there is no other than King Odysseus himself, acting like a madman. You get an off-putting feeling from him. That is when a man approaches him. His name is Palamedes. You can tell that he's simply not buying into it. He's not convinced that the most cunning man of Greece lost his mind right after learning that he's conscripted into the Trojan War, a duty that only a physical or mental illness could stop him from fulfilling. There is a phrase in Greek that goes, "Άσε τον τρελό στην τρέλα του." Let the madman in his madness. Well, Palamedes did the exact opposite. He played along. He found the king's infant son, Telemachus, took him in his arms, and like a true madman, placed him on the ground in the path of the plough. As soon as he saw that, Odysseus ran towards his son and lifted him off the ground. We can imagine that he exclaimed, "Have you lost your mind?" to the man who almost had his baby killed. And that is when Palamedes revealed that he knew that Odysseus was totally sane all along. In fact, his quick reflexes would make him a great addition to the army. And at that moment, Odysseus realized that he could not shy away from his duty, and he embarked on one of the most epic journeys in the history of storytelling. What this post-Homeric background myth of the Iliad reveals about the first act of the hero's journey is that people may not always listen to their calling. They may shy away from opportunities that are meant to push them outside of their comfort zone, meant to make them stronger and wiser than they already are. Every first act of the hero's journey, which is called the departure, starts with a calling like this. But as Campbell explains, some heroes may refuse it initially. This is known as the refusal to the call. Not every ancient Greek hero goes through the states. For example, in the myth of Theseus, there is no explicit refusal of the call, and the young man is eager to slay the terrifying Minotaur in Crete. Also, in the original version of Homer's Iliad, Odysseus does not fake madness to avoid the war. So this refusal of the call may be a later addition to the monomyth structure. The departure act has many more stages. The next one is known as the supernatural aid, or you may have heard it as meeting with a mentor. This is an important stage of the first act. As soon as the hero or heroine shows commitment, a god, a goddess, a fairy godmother, a spiritual mentor, or a guardian angel appears on their path. They provide protection, they intervene whenever they can, and even offer them artifacts that will aid them later on. Yes, just like in a video game. A clear example from our modern times is Gandalf from The Lord of the Rings, who uses his magical powers to protect the ring bearer in his journey to Mordor. In ancient Greek mythology, the supernatural aid comes in many forms. According to the Bibliotheca of Apollodorus, the hero Perseus, the one who slayed the monster Medusa, met at least 3 on his path. Goddess Athena lending him her polished shield that had a mirroring effect. Hermes offered him a sword and a pair of winged sandals. Lastly, Hades, the god of the underworld, delivered him the helm of invisibility. Perseus used the highly polished bronze shield as a mirror so he could approach Medusa without looking directly at her. Her gaze turned people to stone. His sword had a curved blade sharp enough to decapitate Medusa in one stroke. With his winged sandals, he was able to fly over the seas as he exited the monster's lair, while the other Gorgons ran after him. Yeah, Medusa had many sisters, and of course the helm of invisibility offered him additional coverage. If this story reminds you of The Legend of Zelda, the video game, you can best believe that Perseus was a huge inspiration for the video game developers. Mentors sending artifacts is such a common trope that you will now notice it everywhere. Even Harry Potter received the Sword of Gryffindor, delivered by Dumbledore via the Phoenix, as he was trapped in the Chamber of Secrets with the Basilisk. And yes, just like Medusa, the Basilisk could turn you into stone. In Greece, we often say that there is no such thing as parthenogenesis. Now, going back to one of our favorite heroes, Odysseus, the king of Ithaca, the supernatural aid came from different gods throughout the epic, such as Hermes, who offered him a herb to protect him from a witch named Kirke. But the real aid in this case was goddess Athena, who truly admired Odysseus for his inventiveness. At the end of the epic, she even disguised herself as Mentor, Odysseus' old friend, to encourage Telemachus, now as a young man, to stand against the suitors that tried to take over the kingdom of Ithaca during his father's absence. She saved the king multiple times, including when god Poseidon would send storms towards his way. The first act of the hero's journey does not end there. 2 more stages occur: the crossing of the first threshold and the so-called belly of the whale. The first is when the hero actually crosses into the field of adventure, when the known limits of his world are long gone and he ventures to the unknown. That is when the hero Theseus leaves Athens to arrive to Crete to fight the Minotaur, or when Jason leaves Iolcus with the other Argonauts on their way to Colchis. As for the belly of the whale, I know it is a bizarre name, that is a realm in which the hero comes close to death, but instead of leaving this earth before meeting his destiny, he survives. But he goes through a metamorphosis, just like the biblical story of Jonah, who survived 3 days and 3 nights within a whale's stomach, only to emerge as a new person. And in Greek mythology, there might be many moments of death and rebirth throughout the entire plot. For Odysseus, the trials and transformation are intense. At the end of the Iliad, he emerges from the belly of a wooden horse and fights the Trojans within their own walls that they managed to protect for so long. The war ends and he ends up finding himself unable to go home. He gets trapped in a cave with gigantic cyclops and has to come up with a way to escape. He manages to do so by encouraging the least brilliant of the Cyclops, Polyphemus, to drink wine till he is incapacitated, only to poke his one and only eye with a sharpened stake, poking the nerves of god Poseidon at the same time. The god of the seas was the father of Polyphemus, and he was not pleased with this action or with the mocking that followed. One could also argue that Odysseus' entire Nostos, his homecoming journey from Troy to Ithaca, is a belly of the whale stage. Throughout this time, his family believes that he has perished in the seas. But this is not true at all. He's going through a literal hell, and in a way, he is initiated into a more mature version of himself. One that would not fake madness to avoid military duties. However, the Cyclops cave is perhaps a better example, as the real obstacles on his journey are placed right after this moment. The real trials begin as soon as he flees the island, mocking Polyphemus for his stupidity, infuriating Poseidon even further. I just mentioned the verb initiated while describing Odysseus' journey. This is a term used for discovering hidden truths in a ritualistic way, and this is what the hero's journey is really about. It is an initiation procedure. The entire second act of the hero's journey is named Initiation, and it once again includes multiple different stages. However, not all myths contain all of them, or at least in the way they were initially described. What all myths have, however, is the so-called Road of Trials, the first stage of the initiation. This is basically the section where all the action happens, all the monster slaying you can imagine. As soon as Heracles made the choice of virtue over vice in Act 1, he finds himself at the Oracle of Delphi, which instructs him to visit Tyrrhene in the Peloponnese and be at the service of King Eurystheus. If he performed the labors the king would ask him to do, he would be granted immortality. Heracles knew that Eurystheus was inferior to him in so many ways, but he agreed to serve him, knowing that he will prove his worth in this way. Eurystheus was not easy to please. Heracles had to fulfill a set of tasks known as the 12 labors. The hero had to slay a lion in Nemea, a 9-headed lake monster, obtain the belt of the queen of the Amazons, and even capture Cerberus, the guard dog of the underworld. For Odysseus, the Road of Trials involves facing the Sirens, navigating between 2 sea monsters, Scylla and Charybdis, the cannibalistic Laestrygonians, and many more obstacles that are often a result of the wrath of gods. The second act of the monomyth includes other stages as well, such as the meeting with the goddess or the woman as the temptress. The second is quite popular in Greek mythology. For example, Odysseus had many incidents in which he almost quit his journey because of a woman. Take Kirke as an example. His homecoming trip was delayed for years while he was tempted by an actual temptress and witch. He also had to be restrained to not follow the tempting voices of the sirens. I have to admit that this type of narrative focuses a lot on male heroes and their relationship with women that can be quite surface level. Each woman has a very distinct role in the hero's life, but the temptress archetype can also be metaphorical. It can be any interference that stops you from reaching your destiny. Anything that offers you comfort and addictive satisfaction. A brief taste of the path of vice. So, in the island of the Lotus Eaters in the Odyssey, there was no beautiful woman distracting the hero from his destination. The fruits of the island were so tasty and addictive that the hero could almost forget that there is something more to life. Life is more than fun and games. The second act of the monomyth includes 3 additional key stages. The atonement, which is basically the moment the hero faces a fearsome figure that is often represented as the father figure. This is the center point of the journey. One could argue that the key point of the Odyssey is the reconciliation of Odysseus with god Poseidon, who after chasing the hero across the Mediterranean eventually forgives him, not because he got tired of seeing him suffer, but because he noticed and eventually matured and understood that it was his arrogance that tormented him this whole time. This stage is followed by the apotheosis, The moment the hero comes to a realization and is armed with new knowledge, now ready to move to the next stage, which is the ultimate boon, the achievement of the goal of the quest. For Odysseus, it is his homecoming, the return. The winds were strong when Odysseus reached Ithaca, his home. He kneeled down and kissed the sand. It was warm and comforting, but he now had to face the greedy suitors that begged his wife Penelope to marry them. In the third act of the monomyth, the return, the hero's long journey comes full circle. In Greek myths, the return is rarely a peaceful homecoming. It is another trial in itself. The skills and most of all endurance he developed on the journey must now be applied to restore his kingdom and reunite with his family. The return thus tests whether the transformation in the realm of adventure can survive in the everyday realm. There are different stages in this act, which do not always apply to Greek myths, and there is no reason to go into too many details. Other heroes like Jason, Theseus, and Heracles also had to face a final challenge after their return from their initiation journey. Heracles had to face the king's insecurities and fears that he would overtake his kingdom. Theseus' excitement with slaying the Minotaur caused him to forget to remove the mourning black sails from his homecoming ship. His father, seeing the color of the sails from afar, ended up ending his life thinking that his son had not survived. As for Jason, the one who sailed with Argo up to the Black Sea to fetch the Golden Fleece, had to face his uncle, Peleus, who refused to relinquish his throne, which belonged to him after all, to Jason. Sometimes returning home with great achievements can actually backfire. People may feel threatened by you. What makes Greek mythology, along with the modern books and films they inspired, so significant and timeless is that they awaken a sense of purpose within us. What they offer to our psyche is not immediately recognized. It happens subconsciously. The hero's journey is a call to action and a reminder that being stuck or dealing with addictions that distract us from growing into our best version is a universal human experience. All you need is remembering your purpose. We all have one, and finding the courage to get out of your comfort zone. And you may be thinking that there is no great purpose set for you. There is no golden fleece nor Ithaca to get to, but the thing is that the mythical goals are quite symbolic. You may be called to finish medical school and start saving people's lives, or you may be called to break generational trauma or pull your family out of poverty. Maybe you will be the voice of those who do not have a say, children, animals, those in war zones. Your purpose is unique to you. Like Heracles and the other heroes, you will come across many monsters in your path. There will be fears and phobias that will paralyze you, just like Medusa. You may have to make a tough decision between two risky choices, like Scylla and Euripides. At work, you may find antagonists that will try to get your position or upcoming promotion. A partner may break your heart or distract you from your duties. You will face rejection, disappointments, health problems, and so many obstacles, losses as well. If you ignore them, they will multiply like a hydra. But you are not alone. Everyone who chose the path of virtue is going through the same challenges as you. Make sure to trust the right people as your mentors and keep an eye for secret haters. This was a shallow dive into the monomyth or hero's journey with ancient Greek mythology at its epicenter. I would like to know what are some challenges you may have faced that remind you of our ancient heroes' trials. Thank you for watching till the end. I hope you found this video interesting. As always, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next episode.